I got it, and then people in.
You know, you're just gonna have to do that forever.
I know now.
Yeah.
I'm starting to start a pattern.
It is, it's such a lovely thing.
Okay, I think we're good to go. Yep.
I'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District. Board directors are present. Director Walker is absent. Today is March the 20th, 2024. With that, I'll call for community expression, an opportunity for members of the audience to address the board on matters which are not on the agenda and for which we can take no action, but are willing to entertain a relatively brief discussion. Is there anyone who has a community expression item to share with the board? None appearing. I'll go on to item 4, managers report and project updates.
Okay, thank you. The first item is an update on the status of the BCPUD's water supply. And as I know, Georgia will address in a little bit later on the agenda, we're going to be moving to a monthly water supply update format, starting with the April meeting. It just sort of, we created it sort of under exigent circumstances and modified things. And we were going on a meeting to meeting basis, which is kind of inconsistent with all the other way that we maintain our data and report our data on a monthly basis. So because the last meeting was March 28th, virtually at the end of February, you basically have the update through that period. I'm going to give you a few more highlights. And then at the April meeting, Georgia will then be presenting March and going forward on that basis. So I'll let her explain that a little bit more in a few minutes, but I just wanted to explain why there's not a written update in your binders. Since it's just been 3 weeks since our last meeting, we don't have the same amount of data available in any event. But as for a few highlights, as of March 12th, which is the last date that we have recorded, I think we had some rain between March 12th and now, but as of March 12th, we've received 29.32 inches of rain since July 1. We have additional rain in the forecast this weekend. And like I say, I do believe that we're probably over 30 inches with the rain that came in last week. But in any event, we seem likely at this point to be hitting the average annual rainfall of 32.52 inches. And thus far in March, production is averaging just over 56,000 gallons a day, and consumption's averaging around 55,000 gallons per day, which is quite similar to the data that I reported at the end of February. We're just kind of seeing a kind of relatively static consumption and production. Last month, I did report that we had the treatment plant was down for quite a number of days because of all the storm events, and we were experiencing the high turbidity in the creek water, and those conditions have all kind of calmed down. And so we're back to more business as usual with running the plant on a daily basis, and our water storage tanks are essentially full. Both of our reservoirs are still full and spilling, so that's great news. And we continue to meet demand with our water from the Arroyo Hondo Creek. Any questions on water supply? Okay. With regard to the groundwater wells project, we're continuing to work with our consulting engineers to prepare the supplemental documentation that the County of Marin has required in connection with our coastal permit applications. On March 12th, we assessed and requested an extension from the county of a month to provide the requested information. So the county planner otherwise had asked for it by March 19th, but she readily granted us an extension to April 19th. Main reason for that is just there's quite a lot of information that's been requested, but fundamentally the technical analyses that we're doing of both both wells to meet the particular policy in the county local coastal plan that asks you to evaluate any potential impacts to coastal resources. I talked about that a little bit at the last meeting. So that work is continuing, and we have draft reports underway. In connection with that, we did purchase, and our consulting hydrologist, Rob Bailey, installed in the wharf well a pressure transducer that's going to be gathering some information relating to, I didn't write it down, but I think it's temperature. I can't remember all three criteria.
Rob for this.
Yeah,
Oh, it's pressure, temperature, and
conductivity.
That
Yeah.
is, yeah, the reflection.
Got it. Thank you.
There's Rob.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob.
And so we are going to be, we have some initial data from that, but Rob wants to, we purchased some additional cable to lower the transducer a bit lower down into the well, to be sampling a little further down inside the well casing, and that's anticipated to be installed this Friday. Then we'll be gathering data for another week or two, just trying to incorporate as much as we can into the report that's eventually submitted to the county. We're also continuing to coordinate with the land trust, and that basically about our well project and the planned housing development project, to make sure everybody knows who's on first and who's on second and where things are going. The Department of Public Works, in its comments on our coastal permit application, essentially wants assurance that the two entities are working together and knowing, coordinating the installations at the property. And so we're working on a joint letter to submit to the Department of Public Works to that effect. And Georgia and I will be meeting tomorrow with Annie O'Connor. We'll try to get that letter finalized soon. Let's see. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
The testing that you're doing, is that as simple as like bringing up water and sampling it, or is there like an electronic device that is submitting the results?
Rob, I hate to put you on the spot.
A probe,
Right.
that is immersed in the well, and so, it's just directly sampling, and then, you're able to download that data.
Okay, so it's digital.
So it's not sending it to us, but we can pull the sensor up and. data.
I think actually, I'm not positive if you have to actually pull the entire sensor up. But basically, well, Rob's right here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Rob, give us a little 90-second.
Yeah.
Hey, so is the question how the instrument works?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's a probe. It's a small stainless steel device on a cable that goes down the well, and it has a thermometer, an electrode, and a piezoelectric crystal in it. So it measures the amount of water sitting above it, the pressure. It measures the electrical conductivity of the water, and it measures the temperature. And it's got an onboard little computer and a battery. So it stores all the information, and then we can query it through the cable to download the data. So right now we're downloading it once a week just to make sure things are working right, and while we sort of get some things dialed in. And then ultimately, as we have done in the past, I'll probably transfer it over to staff member, and maybe once a month they'll pull the data.
thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions on the Wells project? Okay. Turning more to general operations, I mentioned at the last meeting that this is usually our report season. We have several reports that are due at the end of the month that I'm working on here in the office. Our operations staff has been very busy in the field, kind of just doing post-storm cleanup and preparing for spring. Our riding mower that we use on all our properties to kind of keep the grass down has broken and can't be repaired. And it's probably too small for the job, basically. It's more of mower that in retrospect you use for like a soccer field or something. And so we really need something more robust. And in any event, the smaller mowers now can't be purchased, gas can't be purchased in California anymore. If gas mowers, only electric. And not that that's bad, but that won't do the job for what we need. And so we're going to be considering some alternative pieces of equipment and see what we can do in terms of cost and whatnot. So we historically contract out for a lot of mowing,
Yeah.
and that works fine and alleviates the responsibility of us to purchase equipment and maintain it. But we do need something that can work for the kind of more sort of weekly to semi-monthly mowing that we need to do, rather than these one-time sort of big prepare for summer type mows that are well done by people with the right equipment. So in any event, we'll be coming back to you about that in future meetings. Our chief operator's been working to schedule the inspection of the 3 pressure reducing valves that we have in our water system. There are 2 valves in the vault at the intersection of Mesa and Alina Bolinas Road. As you probably know, one of them lowers the pressure as it heads down to Gospel Flats, and the other one lowers the pressure as it heads into downtown. And then we have a 3rd PRV station on Park Avenue. And that, again, regulates the pressure going downtown from that area. So we're conferring with Stinson Beach because they also have similar valves on their water system, and talking about coordinating our inspection schedules so that, we can use the same company and just work it out that we can schedule. These should be done ideally, as we understand it, every 5 years. So we'll get on that schedule for the PRVs. The staff's also working on the new plan for the Azola removal from the surface of the Woodrat One Reservoir. I think I mentioned at an earlier meeting that we were surprised to see the Azola returning very early in the year. Our prior experience had been that it seemed to kind of explode a little bit about this time of year, or late March, mid to mid-April, when the days are getting longer and sunnier and warmer. So it was a surprise to see it come back. It's not super thick, but it's pretty pervasive on the surface of the reservoir. So the staff, the operations staff, came up with the idea of being able to install essentially a big catchment net at the bottom of the overflow pipe that goes through the reservoir to capture the Azola there, and then be able to use the backhoe it's very heavy, to then lift it and move it to a convenient location. We can't get the backhoe up on the top of on the reservoir. So we're trying to use the sort of natural conditions where we've got that overflow pipe there that can, transport everything down near the driveway, but then catch it. They're very important because we are making very dedicated efforts to not allow any Azola to escape through that and go to the property across the street. So so that's what we have underway, and I really commend the operations staff for coming up with this idea. And they're motivated too, because it's a lot of hard labor for them otherwise. But I think it's a great idea. So we'll see if it works. We should know. I think that the nets are supposed to arrive in a couple of weeks, so we should have an idea, perhaps by the next meeting, if they've been able to try it out. We also, our incubator at the sewer lab broke down, and that is where we house the BOD samples that we take and analyze for purposes of our sewer management of our sewer facility. And this is a little perplexing because it isn't that old, and then the replacement's a bit back ordered. So for now, we are sending those samples out to our usual lab, which is going to, incur some additional cost until the incubator arrives. And I think Georgia, do I understand you are also looking at potentially being able to get one from, or like a secondary backup incubator from the Buck? Yeah, okay. So we're trying to working to address that issue. The guys are also starting to prepare the treatment plant and sewer treatment plant for spray season, which officially doesn't begin till April 16th. But in any event, we're not anticipating spraying that soon, to be honest. We're going to be letting the the spray disposal fields dry out some more. And we have plenty of capacity in the ponds right now. It's not urgent to start spraying. So that is in good shape for this year. I can't remember if I've reported that Stu has now received his wastewater grade 1. I did tell you that. And so we're going to be working on a letter to the regional board and securing their, okay to allow him to then serve as our chief operator and not need to keep the supervising grade 5 operator that we've been having from CWRA. But we should know more about that by next month as well.
I have a quick question, Jennifer. My memory is that the general feeling was having that person, that outside person supervise has been helpful to our staff.
Mhm.
And has it, like in retrospect, hopefully in retrospect, because Stuart will be ongoing. Do you feel like that's been value added?
Yeah, I mean, it's been necessary, and I
Of
do think
course.
it's value added for things such, it just, if you have any, uncertainty, or, I mean, he completely validated our operators' capabilities and abilities, to operate the treatment plant. He commented a lot on, how safely they work and knowledgeable they are about the facility. So, I mean, very positive feedback from him. I mean, it's what I presumed myself as well, but it's nice to, to have someone come from the outside that is such a highly credentialed operator himself give that kind of feedback.
I
Yeah.
think that that's such good feedback for us to have.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that the staff really was able to, hear that, like, wow, you guys are doing an amazing job and you're competent and this, that, and the other.
That's what I was
I think
hearing.
that's really,
Yeah.
I like having that feedback loop, and I know that we had to do it, but I'm appreciative that we had to do it, and what it did was say, yes, the way that you all are working together is exactly how you need to continue. I think that's terrific.
Yeah.
And any little tweaks that person might have offered, fabulous.
Well, and that's what I wanted. I mean, that was a lot of the feedback he gave me, and I present them also directly. And then I have no doubt that there was also substantive sort of knowledge exchange, that was
Yeah.
going on in the field. And I know that I think it also reassured Stu to the extent, just like anyone would feel reassured to know by someone very senior and experienced that, he was knowledgeable and appropriately, making good
On the
decisions.
right
And
track.
yeah,
That's great, thank you.
yeah. So,
One more question.
Mhm.
Have we shown him the operator, the proposal for the upgrades down at the treatment? Well, I guess at the collection, down on Wharf Road, has he seen that proposal? And I'm just curious if he has any
yeah,
thoughts on that,
no,
or what he thinks about the upgrades we're considering, or some of the changes down there? No.
we didn't talk about it. He's primarily treatment. I don't, as opposed to collections,
Okay.
which that's more the collection system. We can certainly ask him about it. Because he'll be here, he'll be working still for a few more weeks, I think. I'm happy to run that by him.
Or have you talked to him about possible expansions with the treatment or any of that sort of thing? Have you
Yeah.
talked about that? Yeah.
I told him the kind of things that we were looking at. The one thing he suggested that I thought was interesting was that as far as increasing treatment, or I'm sorry, yeah, treatment capacity would be to eliminate the separation between ponds 1A and 1B. Like right now, there's the dissipation manhole comes up and the effluent from downtown goes into both 1A and 1B, but there's a huge, I mean, I don't know, 20, 30-foot wide berm. You know, I have never measured it, but you know, it's substantial berm that you can drive across in between the two ponds. And so from a cost-effective way to get more storage capacity there, removing that could be, because there's no reason that there's not a treatment reason why it needs to be in two ponds as opposed to one. That was something he floated and definitely understood the challenges that that the whole thing is going to be presenting to the system, you know, to come
Yeah.
to be able to comply.
But if we only have him for another visit or two, it might be worth, you know, extracting as much, I don't know, of his wisdom as possible about these sorts of things.
Yeah, 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 we definitely talked about that and also just the possibility of adding the recycled water component. And so, yeah, but I'll be sure, I think that's good. We've talked more about that because of the direct experience he's having helping us with things and like, you know, what the sludge analysis result showed as far as, you know, the fact that we are not having an incipient issue with sludge, that we've still got probably 10 years before the sludge needs to be removed from the pond. So it'll probably just be done as part of whatever the upgrade is going to be, you know, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
But
So we ever looked through our design materials for the ponds to see if there was a rationale for that, dividing those into A and B?
no, I don't. I'm gonna, like, I have raised that issue with our consulting engineer
Yeah,
via an email, just saying, hey, you know, just that he mentioned this, and we haven't had a chance to discuss it yet.
okay.
And also Stu recently gave a tour of the facilities of the treatment facility to a grad student from Cal Poly who was connected with us, I think, from a former professional relationship between Jeannie McNaughton and maybe his advisor or something. But in any event, that was also apparently quite, you know, helpful, that the grad student was very excited about our system and
Yeah.
was also offering, you know, to help however he could. So I'm sure that Stu will take advantage of that if he can. But that was just, that occurred while I was on vacation, so I wasn't here when I didn't meet him, but. Okay, just briefly, that you saw in the materials that the AQUA, the Association of California Water Agencies, is we have a couple items where we're being asked to sort of support or oppose legislation on things. And this one is AQUA urging all the water districts in California to join a coalition supporting a bill, AB 2257, which will help water agencies better defend themselves in Prop 218 litigation. And, you know, Prop 218 is the proposition that we follow whenever we're proposing increases to our rates. And the idea is just to say, if you've got a problem with what the district is doing, you need to raise it while they're in the process of doing it so they can consider your objections and ideally avoid litigation. As they put it in the materials for the lawyers in the room, it's sort of an exhaustion of administrative remedies concept, that you shouldn't be able to kind of like come later and raise issues that the board could have considered and made different decisions. And so AQUA is asking all the water agencies to support this. And so unless there's any objection from the board, I was just going to complete the online form they're asking the district to complete so that we're included in future mailings about this. Is that, no? Okay,
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Then with regard to various issues, the kind of post-storm issues and with the respect to the eucalyptus trees, and I'm focused here in particular on the trees on the north and south side of Mesa Road and a couple on Olima Bolinas Road. But that, I think I reported at last month's meeting that, that we learned that PG&E will clean up the entirety of a tree if it originated from a county right of way, because there are processes to leave the wood on the property from which it fell. But if the property is a public right of way, then there's an agreement in place between PG&E and the owner of the right of way, in that case, the county, to go ahead and remove it. And so you may have noticed there was a considerable amount of work going on the north side of Mesa Road with regard to the trees that fell that way onto private property. And so George Krakauer basically raised the issue on, like, well, what about the other side? There was trees from the right of way that fell there. And so I have an email indicating that they've identified 5 trees that they think that they're responsible for, but in terms of cleaning them up, but we will, we'll have some further work to determine that. And I just lost my train of thought on that. And we might need to do another walkthrough. Well, I lost my train of thought or something I was just going to say. I hope it'll come back to me. So anyway, so we'll be looking to get the trees cleaned up from the south side. In your binders, I put just a recent correspondence from Marin Water, and that, I had advised Marin Water that there were more trees that came down with exposed root balls, and if they wanted to come look and see if they were appropriate for the project, to inviting them out, and they're quite interested. He said that he's going to try to come out and look, and also gave me confirmed that their approach to the project has shifted from directly entering into contracts with landowners for the wood, rather issuing a comprehensive RFP for restoration contractors that are going to do the salmon habitat restoration, to be responsible for getting the wood that they're going to use in the project, but with a preference, or trying to craft language, have a preference for locally sourced wood or logs. And it sounds like they're going to try to specifically mention the district property as well. So that's the latest I've heard on that. I don't know if the RFP has been issued. I haven't heard. And then I understand from the Bolinas Eucalyptus project that the monarch butterfly assessment prepared by Stu Weiss's firm, that's the new, the new professional that they've hired to do that assessment, has been completed, and they're expecting to get the final report soon. I also talked briefly with Matt Richmond from WRA, who confirmed that they're awaiting that report in terms of finishing the biological site assessment. And I think that the next step is the eucalyptus group representatives wanting to meet with BCPUD representatives to talk about the next steps going forward for permits and whatnot. That's what I know right now. And then I'm working to just finish up the update that David Ainley asked us to do at the last meeting, about putting kind of an update into the hearsay about what's been going on in terms of all the things we've been reporting at the meetings. But his feeling was the community would be even better informed if we put something in the hearsay. And so we should have that ready in the next couple of weeks. With regard to SB 1383, I'm glad to say that our full waiver application was approved. I reported last time that I applied for the waiver and it was granted, but I had been kind of strategic in how I applied for it, because I thought, well, we're not going to stop offering 3 container service, or we're not going to, change the way we're doing things, so we don't need to get that exemption. But the Cal Recycle people came back to me and said, well, if you don't get a waiver of that, then we're going to have to require you to enforce it and make sure your people are complying with it. So you should really resubmit and for a full waivers, and then you won't be responsible for any any of the reporting or enforcement obligations. So that's where we are, which is where we wanted to be and where I think it's appropriate that we are as a small jurisdiction, that we're not subject to those requirements. But it was unfortunate that we had to incur a lot of costs that we can't get reimbursed because we didn't get the waiver in the first place on a technicality. But I'm grateful that the legislature enacted the amending bill that allowed these waivers to be given without that technical requirement. So let's see, we are going to be hosting a defensive driving training course. Well, we're hosting it at the fire department's house, so to speak. The fire department's wonderful public meeting room is going to be the site of the defensive driving training that's being put on by JPIA. The Stinson Water District staff is also coming. I don't know if we'll also be getting attendees from different staff. I mean, from different districts, but it was put out generally in the region. So we haven't been told by the trainer that we need to expect a whole lot more people. So it may well just be that it's our current staff and the Stinson staff. But we're looking forward to that. That'll afterwards we'll do a tour of facilities with the risk advisor is what they call it. Risk management advisor is the position name of the person that's coming out to do the training. And if any board members are interested, you're welcome to attend. I've taken the defensive driving many times over the course of working here, and it's super helpful. And I wish that my kids both had it when they were learning to drive, because it really makes you more aware. No. It's no.
Do you know when it is? Is it scheduled yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's from 9 to noon tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow.
Yeah. Update on the pedestrian bike path project. I reported, a little bit about this at the last meeting. We presented, there was a concept design, schedule, and probable cost estimate that you reviewed, and we anticipated that the 30% construction drawings were going to be presented tonight. But Georgia and I, as well as our engineer, Ian Carpenter from BKF Engineers, had a meeting with county at the end of last month to review the concept drawings, design drawings, and some questions were raised about some aquatic features on the property. So this was not the same planner that we had the conversation about when we first presented the project to them last year. So we're working with WRA to kind of answer those questions. And in the meantime, we just paused paused BKF, said hold off on the 30% drawings till we can resolve this stuff. So we ideally will do so within the next week or so.
Do we have a biological site assessment?
We weren't required to do one. Yeah. And so that a little bit of this is like, well, do you need us to do something? And so we'll see what we end up with on it. Yeah. But the original decision last April from the county was, repair and maintenance under the existing coastal permit, and you don't need to do a biological site assessment. Yeah. With regard to our jurisdictional profile in the multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan, I don't have a specific update yet. It's basically still under review at Cal OES. And then we'll be going to FEMA. So at some point in the next couple of months, we'll have an item on the agenda for you to officially approve our jurisdictional profile. It's just taking quite a while. It's huge, though. It's an enormous document. It's over 1,000 pages altogether. Not just ours, but the entire document for all of the districts. Let's see. I think probably people have been noticing this, but and there's been a fair number of announcements put out there, but I hope everybody knows that this Saturday, March 23rd, there's a emergency test that is planned, and that you can go to Alert Marin and sign up for it. It's being kind of organized and run by the county's Office of Emergency Management. There have been posts on Nextdoor about it from our district, from the fire district, and from the county, as well as I've seen mention of it sort of just generally in other publications. But it's a county-wide test of the emergency preparedness system. So just mentioning that. I'm also happy to report that the Coastal Commission last Friday basically, approved that, BPUD's withdrawal as a co-applicant in the seawall project and issued and, approved a revised permit that for the seawall project to proceed. And so that appears now to be able to move forward. On the Alliance of Coastal Marin Villages, we've got a meeting that is set to happen with Supervisor Radoni on April 5th. And George has been introduced to the other members of the Alliance of Coastal Marin Villages and would be stepping in my place on a going forward basis. One of the things that is there's a number of things the Alliance looking at closely now. And you might have seen in today's newspaper with the Marin IJ that the county has just embarked on a $500,000 study to do like sea level rise planning. But there's some concern that most of it is focused on East Marin and the San Francisco Bay area rather than the coastal communities. So we'll be ringing the bells about that to make sure that there's some consideration given out in West Marin to some of these planning dollars. Then finally, since this is my outgoing meeting as the BPUD's general manager, I wanted to be able to take an opportunity to thank the board and to thank the staff and the community for your support and confidence over the last 19 years, which is kind of amazing. We've been through a lot together: severe droughts, atmospheric rivers, large capital improvement projects, stressful all-night infrastructure repairs, the occasional long and crowded BPUD board meeting on controversial issues, medical crises, changes in town culture, cost of living challenges. And despite it all, I would not have wanted to work with anyone else during all of that. All of the board members throughout my time here have been dedicated and supportive and always keeping the town's best interests in mind and foremost. The staff also has been dedicated, and the current staff is exemplary. The community is also very special. And I know we all feel an ownership about the water and sewer system, which is kind of odd, but it is how it should be. And I want to give a special shout out to Belle Wood, who served as the district's administrative assistant the entire time that I've been the general manager. And I feel pretty certain that I've spent more time with Belle over the last 19 years than I have with my husband. But I will be forever grateful to her for putting up with me for all these years and for all of her exceptional personal and professional support. And finally, I want to say how pleased I am that Georgia Woods is going to be taking over as the general manager. We've worked together for a couple of months now, and I can say without question that the district is trading up in its general manager. That George is incredibly smart and detail-oriented and a fast study, and I have full confidence in her and look forward to benefiting from her leadership as a customer of the district. So, yeah, thanks everybody.
Well, I would say on behalf of the board that we are very grateful for your service to our community and to this district, and you've often gone way above and beyond. And we appreciate all of that. And I think at some point, those of us on the board should get together and plan something a little more formal than just this thank you right now. I think you really deserve a nice farewell celebration because you deserve it. So
Thank you.
anybody else wants to say anything?
Well, absolutely. And, I think that the contingencies of weather and COVID and all the rest of it have short circuited so many times when we've wanted to get together and have those, board staff moments where we get to express our, you know, in big and small, in formal ways and informal ways, you know, the sense of togetherness and gratitude that we feel. And what I really don't want to see happen is for this just to kind of slip away. You deserve
Yeah.
the most phenomenal thank you celebration. You really do, because you've worked so hard for so long, your historical knowledge, the integrity that you've brought to the job, the dedication, I mean, you know, we could go on and on. You've been phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I don't want the contingencies of everybody being busy to not allow us to take a breath, take an exclamation point, and really have something to say thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because we're
Thank
so grateful to you.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, and I would like to say that it's been great working with you, Jen. You're gonna make me cry.
Right?
Because we just started out as like parents who knew each other, and so we've become really close friends, and I really appreciate that. And of course, we're gonna have a big party for you, obviously, even though you don't want it that way, but too bad. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to you getting much needed rest and time to yourself and hanging out with you outside of the office. So,
I'll get a bench and Billy and I will come sit outside. We'll grumble about how it was in the old days and what the
exactly.
newfangled kids doing now with the district, yeah.
Well, it's been great. It's great to work with you, and I know that we'll see each other hopefully just as much, maybe not quite as much, but
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
yep.
I just want to say something briefly.
Sure.
I'll save my speech for another party, but
In a different voice.
in a different voice.
Yeah.
Everybody in town knows that you do a lot of work for us, but having been on the board, I can tell everyone you do so much more than we think that you do. And so the lift that you do for this town, the like selfless push that you have done and just given to us is like so amazing. And it's so above and beyond. So we all owe you a parade. And, you know,
True.
vacation time, and whatever it is, but thank you so much, because a lot of it is unseen, and it has been really revealing as a board member to truly grasp like how much you do, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah, well, sure, parade on the new path when it's.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
March on down there. I do also want to say that as a citizen of the community, you never have gotten annoyed when people come, when you're out there running and trying to have your private life. When people just come to you and say, well, what is this? What happened? What about that? And that's hard to do, because I know that's an intrusion on your private life, but you have been so ready to be supportive and kind, and so that's a big thing. So thank you for all of that. Really appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jenny. I appreciate it.
Well, should we move on to?
Yeah, I'm gonna save my speech for the party.
Only Bill and now Georgia really know what you have to do.
Yeah.
All right, so the second part of this, the agenda now is the incoming manager's report.
Okay, so just very briefly, shouldn't take long, but I just wanted to touch on what Jennifer already introduced, which was kind of modifying the way that the water supply memo will be delivered going forward. So one aspect of that is that Belle and I met with Rob Daly, who is the person who not only set up all of the data that is the analyses of the data that's collected in the district to prepare the graphs that are embedded within that report. But he also kind of really fleshed out the Excel doc so that it's user friendly and, you know, has little push buttons that produce the data. So the idea being that it was amenable to somebody who's not a hydrologist to be able to generate the data or the analyses of the data. So that was a really helpful kind of lesson where he just walked us through the spreadsheet. Again, my plan is to, as Jennifer was saying, align the data so that it's kind of in these month chunks. And so I would be slightly behind times. It wouldn't be like, you know, day of, but it would be the previous month's data that would be presented to you guys. So that's pretty much that. I mean, again, you know, once I go into get into the nitty gritty of actually working with the Excel doc, I might come back and tell you, oh my God, it was terrible. We need Rob to do all of this. So just like, you know, with that caveat. And let's see, one of the other things that I talked about last time, briefly, was the idea of automating some of the meeting minutes. And again, we've started to play around, Belle and I have started to play around with some of that software, but we'll really kind of try to give a more formal report in the next meeting around, you know, what does it look like to kind of go through our pretty grueling process of generating the minutes. And again, that's not something that I've been intimately involved with, but I've seen Belle and Jennifer slog through it. And so, yeah, so it's kind of like, what does it look like? I mean, clearly it's not, the technology is not to the point where it's going to be producing like the beautiful minutes that they produce, but it's sort of like, what is the alternative and how much time can we kind of, how can we work with what's generated to sort of tweak it into something that is usable for our minutes. And then kind of more broadly, I mean, I'll wait to actually have this as an agendized item in the meeting next time, but I kind of wanted to have an opportunity to talk more generally about our meetings going forward. The location, you know, the potentially even time around them, and some of the structure of how we, you know, structure the agendas, etc. But I would like that to be a, you know, kind of its own formal piece.
Yeah.
And so that's basically it. My update on the IT needs. Basically, I presented to you guys last time on that, and just to let you know that we have I just uninstalled Office 2013 on my computer this week.
Yeah.
I also made Belle uninstall hers, although she was very scared to do so. So yes, and we're like, hopefully gonna pull Jennifer in our direction as well. So that's all going well. We still, you know, Belle and I had a long conversation with our IT consultant, and that was very helpful, but there's definitely a lot to do around kind of, you know, digitizing a lot of the data in the district. And that's been a big, it's been really nice to not have the full responsibility of being the general manager yet, because that's allowed me to really kind of think more deeply about how I want to structure some of the kind of overall organization of all of the beautiful data we have here and information, and, you know, broadly, just like, how do we digitize everything, like our HR, like the whole thing. So anyways, but I'm enjoying that aspect of it, and also very appreciative for Jennifer that I've actually had time to really address it, and it wasn't just like thrown in the deep end as far as like, you know, doing things that actually matter to the district like tomorrow.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And I'm sure that you'll still be available for consultations
Yeah.
as needed.
Oh, yeah, I mean, and I'll be here for, I mean, my, the retirement date is a sort of a little amorphous right now, just as see what's needed, and also finish up some projects that just don't make sense to that are 95% done, that don't make sense to hand off at that point and finish those things up, but yeah. So it's a little I'm sorry to be unclear with that thing, basically having June 30th probably be the target for my last day of regularly working a full, full days and weeks, and then be sort of working off my accrued vacation by then, just coming in for 2 or 3 hours or whatever's needed, and then I can just extend out. Then you don't run into the problem with the where there's rules around, you can't turn it right around and consult for a public agency, so we could do that, and that would all be above board and appropriate. Yeah.
All right.
And that's it. Look forward to my first meeting as the general manager next month.
That didn't sound too convincing. I think you need to try that again.
Yes. What was that word, looming?
I have a comment.
Yeah,
I'm all in favor of trying to make the minutes as streamlined and easy as possible, and if AI can help, I think that's fantastic. And I'm also, as I've been on this board, what's been very interesting to me is that there have been times when it's been so helpful and crucial to go back and see what people actually said. And having, and it's been grueling. I mean, for Jennifer and Bill, they have to go back and listen to old tapes of meetings and stuff, but it's been rather critical, particularly in this town, particularly in this situation about who said what, when. And so I'm holding both of those realities, and how can we make this move into the, 23rd century, move on? And how can we also have the access to the precision that the tapes provide? And that's just, I don't want one to be at the service of the other, but it's been really useful to have both. When I take minutes, I tend to be so streamlined about it. And I've reflected a lot that if I had been taking minutes for these meetings, it would not have provided the data that I then wanted as a board member. So, doing that dance.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
I don't think so either, but I wanted to call it out.
Yeah, and I think the tapes have always been valuable. Every once in a while, they're crucial in resolving something. It's just good to have them. But I agree that it would be good to streamline our whole minutes process. And so, but
Let's try it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
one on your list. So
Yeah, I mean, our plan is, Bella and I have been talking about it, but one of the things we were thinking of doing that isn't necessarily all that much more. Well, it's no more work really, but being a little critical in how we approach it and look at a short meeting, which was like the January meeting, which was one of my first meetings, and kind of look at what it is, try to kind of estimate as best we can the amount of time that it takes to generate the minutes, and then reanalyze it with the AI, and then basically, me going through and generating what I would think are comprehensible minutes and sort of comparing the two. So that's sort of what I'm hoping to present at the meeting, is sort of like, what do these two things look like, and it's sort of like, maybe it's not perfect, especially with the incredibly high bar that was set in the district. But is it kind of good enough given potential time savings?
yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, I think it's a good investigation.
All right, is there any more on your incoming managers?
No, that's all.
Okay,
Can I ask one more question about this? Maybe more for Jennifer. I don't know, the solar repair, did that ever get figured out? Because I know we were having trouble finding somebody to.
Yep, I reached out to another firm. We set a time, we scheduled a tentative date, then I didn't hear back. Then I went on vacation, and then when I got back earlier this week, I sent another email to resume getting a meeting scheduled, and I haven't heard anything yet.
Okay.
So,
So hopefully we found somebody, but it's just hard to get. them.
They said I gave in a very explicit description of what we were looking
Okay.
for, and he said he thought they could help. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 6, which is resolution 721 to adopt a resolution of opposition to initiative 1935. Why don't you just explain to us, Jennifer, because we have a draft of the resolution in our binder. And it's quite lengthy, so.
Yeah, so this is like, rather than the prior thing I mentioned in my manager's report was a call by the Association of California Water Agencies to support a particular bill. This is a call by the California Special Districts Association to oppose a piece of legislation, a proposed legislation. And well, it's actually an initiative that is being put by a version of the kind of Jarvis Gann type organizations on the ballot to make it more difficult for special districts to put forward rate increases. And the specific language would be particularly burdensome in terms of, I think, tying it to actual costs that you can't, you can't have any rates proposed for something other than actual costs, which I don't even know how you would run a district that way. That would be like only funding your operating budget and not funding capital improvements or further planning efforts. And I mean, a lot of talk that's going on now is, I think, throughout the country, special districts and larger districts in major cities are recognizing that the costs of dealing with climate change impacts on infrastructure is going to be enormous. And so that's one of the things cited in the special district materials about, just at a time when we need to be investing more and better in our infrastructure, this would make things a lot more difficult. And so again, they asked, special districts throughout California to have their boards approve this resolution, which it's the model resolution that they enacted, and it would actually be retroactive, so that if you had increased your rates after 2022, which we did, and it didn't comply with what the law would, I don't even know how that's legal, but anyway, it would be retroactive that those would then be invalidated.
That makes some sense, you don't
No.
have to give the money back.
Right.
Yeah.
I've already been collecting the money for 3 years.
And there is a very transparent process that occurs with the budget being reviewed at, by our finance committee at public meetings, by the board at public meetings and available. And, the Prop 218 process that we do go through to explain to our customers, what we need the money for. It all goes here. This is as local as you can get. Other taxes that you pay, it's much less clear. You can look at our budget and you know exactly where your service charge dollars are going. So that's why,
So
I don't-
the June ballot or November?
well, I think that it is, hold on, let me see. It must be November, Jack, right? I apologize that I don't have that right at hand. Let me see.
I thought it was November, but I don't remember reading that specifically.
You just let them so.
Well,
June
whatever it
election this
is,
year?
I mean.
There's a March election, a June election, and a November election this year, or re-election?
November, it's November,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
All right,
So it
well,
would, this initiative would actually revise the state constitution, so it's also being opposed for that reason, that that's like an invalid mechanism. And that as is wont to happen these days, they're labeling it something like that it's not.
the
As
opposite of
the
what it is.
Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act, and the opposition coalition is calling it the Taxpayer Deception Act.
Yeah.
Anyway, it would as I said, it would apply retroactively and it would, as the CSDA puts it, it would allow well-funded interests that are not residents of your community to invalidate the prior actions of local residents in your community, undermining local control and approved decisions and investments needed in their essential services and infrastructure. And then Governor Newsom filed an emergency petition to the California Supreme Court for a pre-election challenge to the initiative, arguing it's unlawful because it improperly revises the state constitution via initiative and would impair government services. And then I guess last November 29th, the California Supreme Court issued an order to show cause why the measure should not be removed from the ballot and established a schedule for briefing. So that's also going on. And they say the California Supreme Court's likely to rule on the pre-election challenge before the end of June. So
this letter would be in opposition, expressing our opposition for the California Supreme Court's hearing in late June, is that?
no, it was just generally opposing the
generally
initiative.
opposed?
Yeah, and it's opposition. So can I get a motion then to
I have a couple
approve?
quick
Oh,
questions.
sure, go ahead.
Have you talked to any other special districts about this? Like,
I haven't had time.
Yeah.
No.
like the school board, I know some, I read through some of it, I tried to read through as much as I could. They mentioned school boards as being, examples of special districts that would be affected by this. I'm
Mhm.
just wondering what our school board, have you heard any chatter from the school board about this?
Talk to them.
No, I mean, that's kind of routine stuff that I feel like comes up, but this specific one, we haven't talked about yet.
Well, this is particularly germane to Prop 218 types of like water and sewer charges. It's particularly, the language is particularly difficult for that types of proceeding.
Yeah,
So it might be why the California Special District reached out specifically to water and wastewater districts on it, but.
Kevin, any other questions?
I think my other questions were answered, which mostly, which is what types of. How would this affect us directly? And that would be the rate increases, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the only way we'd be affected. Are there any other charges of ours that would be affected by this? Or no, just
Yeah, no,
the rate
no,
increases?
yeah.
Okay. And yeah, the retroactively voiding thing is a little bit scary. Okay, so yeah, those are my only questions.
anyone else have any? All right.
I move to write a letter or whatever is.
I think let's pass the resolution.
Pass the resolution.
What is it, 721?
Mhm.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second,
All right, is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0.
Don't you guys usually have to do a roll call? No.
We all just raised their hand and I just called up result 4-0.
We always do our resolutions as a roll call. Is that
Well,
all right?
do that.
The school board,
Oh, okay.
the resolutions
you want to
are,
vote one by one?
yeah, roll call and other votes are simultaneous. I don't know.
I don't know. We can talk about it. We generally just do what we just did, but
Okay.
if you feel more comfortable,
No, that's fine. I'll,
you kept it.
yeah, I'll look it up and figure out why that is and if it's correct, but that is how we handle resolutions, so.
Okay, well, I think it'll just show as 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 absent or something. Isn't that how it usually shows?
Well, on the resolution itself, it'll show the names of the directors that voted in favor and the fact that
Right.
Director Walker is absent and that there were no abstentions and no
Yeah,
no's.
No's.
Mhm.
So, Georgia, if it turns out we have to be a little different in the way we'll do it, just let us know.
Okay.
Okay. Item 7, there's nothing in the binder. Do we have something to go on the proposed amendment to resolution 553 about requests for
I think you guys asked for a discussion, ability to discuss this because it came up in connection at last month's meeting. There were 2 leak relief requests for relatively large leaks that had happened.
yeah,
And then discussion kind of started happening around what resolution 553 either says or doesn't say and got a little off topic. So we the staff was asked to include an item on the agenda so that the board could actually discuss whether it wants to consider some amendments to resolution 553.
What I saw in the board SharePoint was the different, leak reliefs that have been granted over the years. But I didn't see 553. Be that as it may. But it did seem that. I looked back and I saw that for something specifically like toilet leak, which was what came up last time. Blind leaks seemed pretty consistent. Toilet leaks seemed quite inconsistent, and hose leaks also to some extent. And when I was thinking back over the ones that I've been here for, there were a wide variety of hose leaks and toilet leaks, like, you know, people who had left everything turned off and then somebody came onto their property and was using their hose to shower off, for instance, were kind of in a different category than, oh, we kind of didn't bother to check. And so what I was left with is I'm not feeling clear about whether we can provide a sort of one size fits all answer to this question, or if it's actually more equitable to continue to be case by case and just with perhaps a greater understanding of how we've handled that type of thing in the past. I feel like I'm not being very.
No,
I've been in meetings all day today.
Well, let's hear around with you.
Well, yeah, I've been thinking about this too, and I think the last meeting I had this like, well, we've got to have this black and white policy and it should be really clear. But then after thinking about the details of that and nuance of it, and when it's not a drought, we check our meters every 3 months, you know? And I was thinking, well, some of these toilet leaks could have been happening over 2 weeks. And so do you charge someone? How do you like break down the bill? How can you isolate the event when you don't have the data? And so every time I thought down these roads, I was like, we need more data. And so I feel like we need to push to just have different meters or something that we can read the data more frequently. And so I talked to Stu Okander about a system that the crew seems kind of excited about, and it's based on a radio attachment to meters, and it's made by a company called Badger. And he thought that 60 to 70% of our meters in the district were made by this company and could be retrofitted. Others would have to be replaced. But essentially it's you drive around with an iPad and some transmitter or some equipment, and it sends a radio signal when you get within 100 feet or so of it, and it just sends you the data of the meter, like what the number is. And so it's much less work. Stu said that he likes the idea of the driving versus like the other option is called a mesh network, and it's like all these devices talk to each other and ultimately would relay it back here. And forgive me if you've heard this all. But he said there's unreliable cell service and unreliable, you know, locations of meters that are behind shrubs and fences, and so it might not work. What he likes about the radio is that you actually can drive and inspect the properties and see like, oh, is there flooding here? Oh, is there whatever the issue is, you have the ability to like have eyes on the boots on the ground and see what the source is. And so that's something that they do a lot anyway because of flooding or because of road conditions or whatever. And so it sounds like a good option. I don't know how much it costs. It's probably a few $100s for that piece plus all the other networking infrastructure, but
Yeah, we got the, I can present it, bring it to the finance committee meeting on
Okay.
Monday.
great.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the overall cost is, you know, in the hundreds of thousands, so just so you know.
To do the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that we could do like a test in a neighborhood or one block, and maybe it coincides with the repair of the water mains, you know, some of our capital improvement plans have like, we're gonna redo, you know, say Birch Road or something. And we could just do those houses and then him and the crew could kind of more accurately and isolated do that data analysis and see how it works. But all that to say, like, I don't think I found like a sentence or you know, a couple points to add to 553. I think it is a discretionary thing in a lot of cases. I just think the more times we can check a meter, the more accurately we can be punitive, right? And I feel like right now there's not enough to go on.
I guess just to remind you guys about your discussion last time, I mean, not that you've forgotten it, but one of the things you guys were talking about is not language around being super detailed and prescriptive in how you handle each individual leak, but more that may be part of, you know, and depending on, maybe it's not all cases, but when you might encourage, mandate, I don't know, leverage people to install some of the flume devices or whatever as part of your leak relief. So anyways, when my feeling is I'm totally in agreement with you guys around, like, it makes sense to have a lot of flexibility. But I was just curious about this other part that isn't necessarily, you know, delving into the details of how the leak relief is applied or, you know, not. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you say, Kevin?
Yeah, I've thought about this, about the flume or similar sort of water tool for the user,
Yeah,
for the customer. So I looked into Flume a little bit, because I don't know that much about them, but I'm curious about them. They require a smartphone to get updates in the alert, so I don't know if all of our customers have smartphones, but I feel like there probably are some that don't, so I don't know how that would work if we require a customer to purchase and install a Flume as a condition of getting relief from a water bill if they're not able to do that without the right, you know, smartphone. Or some water meters aren't compatible with the Flume, so if they don't have a water meter that's compatible, then what then? Do we replace their water meter for them? So I think there's some complications with it. I still like the idea of making something like that a condition of getting relief from a water bill. Otherwise, you know, like you've probably seen on the list of customers over the years who have gotten relief, we have some repeat customers, so people coming back to us again and again, asking for relief. If they had something like this, then that might prevent that from happening. So another idea is maybe we only offer it one time. So it's a one-time deal, you know, if you get relief from us, then you're sort of out of luck next time. And maybe that's the way to incentivize them to then go out and purchase the Flume. Say like, hey, I've just used up my get out of jail free card. Maybe I should go ahead and maybe it's time to bite the bullet and spend the $200. So that was another idea about another condition of this resolution is making it a one-time only deal.
yeah, go ahead, Jenny.
I was thinking too, when we were in the middle of drought and many people were reading their meters, daily, weekly, keeping kind of week up to chart, just to see where that we were on target for what the recommended usage was or the criteria was. And I found it very informative. And I think if there would be some way to pull the customer into the process more. So maybe they have a reporting process, and I don't know what the technology would be. But to read their own meters and keep a monthly report. That then after the 3 month, when they get the bill, or when the BCPUD meter readers make their 3 month check, there's some way to know what the customer has. I don't know how that would exactly work, but I do think it would be very productive for the district if if customers were more involved in the process. Because then you would know right away if you had a leak. And you could say, wow, all of a sudden, I'm using a lot of water. I need to do something, instead of waiting for the district to tell you, wow, you used a lot of water. Because people don't pay attention unless they have some need to. So I don't know how that would work, whether it would be the cell phone check-in or some way to send in. It may be too much extra work for the staff here, but for customers to send in their monthly. And I know we used to do that in another town in a time far away with electricity. We read our own meters. It was a small collective, and we read our own meters, and then we were checked. I think we weren't even checked once a year. We were checked. So I don't know how you would do it, but I do think it would make a huge difference in the district water use if people were somehow brought into the process of reading their meters.
And Grace,
Yeah, what I've been trying to think of is how to incentivize customer participation without increasing work for the staff.
Yeah.
And I haven't come up with any really brilliant ideas. You know, the one thing was, is there a way that perhaps we could make a deal with the Flume people or whoever, so that we could offer that technology at a lower cost than they would get it if they just bought it from the internet? You know, that's something that other water districts do, you know, low cost toilets for cheap or this, that, or the other. I think that there may be some way we could move forward in that direction. Having people have to install them after they've already had the leak really seems a lot like shutting the gate after the horses escaped. Yes, there are repeat customers, but
too many.
not too many. I mean, usually it's like, oh gosh, you know, the pipe broke underground and you didn't notice it. To me, what would be more helpful for the district is to have the maximum possible people having alerts pop up on their phone saying, oh my gosh, something's going on with your water. Is everybody gonna pay attention? No. But if 30% of the people pay attention and call the office and say, hey, something's weird, and we can go check, I think it'd be worth it. So I kind of want to head in that direction. Having people be proactive rather than us having to chase them.
Yeah.
I had a story about the flume.
Go ahead.
So I've had it for a while now, and twice it has sent me a note, an email within 2 hours of a very small leak. Once a gardener came and they didn't turn the hose all the way off, and it was only leaking at it to the tune of about 6 gallons an hour. But after 2 hours of continuous flow, and this thing is pretty sensitive in terms of what it can detect, it sent me an email. So I got on the phone with the gardener. I said, hey, can you send that person back and just have them retighten the handle? And it worked. Another time I had, I was doing some cement work, posts for fences and things in the yard. And you know, you've got the leaky nozzle on there and it's on for a while. You don't think it's doing much. And it wasn't. It was again about 6 gallons in an hour. But I got an email that told me that there was some continuous flow. So a leaking toilet flapper, a pipe under a sidewalk, a pipe during a rainstorm, the kinds of things that I was hearing at the last meeting that people were saying, oh, well, there was no way one would know. We then would know. And then at the end of the month, every month, Flume sends you an email and says, this is how much water you used this month. And there weren't any leaks that we detected, so on and so forth. And you can go right on and look. Yeah, you have to have a smartphone to do it. But I found it pretty useful. The one thing I was concerned about was that when gophers push all the dirt up in the meter box, that was gonna be a problem. So I was trying to figure out what to do, and I was told that I shouldn't put any cement in the bottom. I called BPUD and Jennifer, and then I talked to Stu, and I was told under no way are you to put cement in the bottom of your meter box. But I just put a piece of chicken wire in the bottom, and that's enough. If you flex it down, it's enough to keep the gophers from pushing up and burying the meter in dirt and covering the flume and the rest. So I thought I'd just mention it. It's pretty useful.
What's the cost to you?
It was a one-time cost. I can't remember. It's about 3 years ago. I'm gonna say it was about $200. The
Yeah.
first thing you do is you go on the website and you check to see if your meter is compatible, and all the BPUD meters are compatible.
Yeah,
So then you strap it on, and it has a pretty long range. There's a little piece that you plug in your house that hooks to you have to have Wi-Fi. And then that bridge hooks to your Wi-Fi, and it hooks to the meter outside, and then everything just runs through the phone. And it's been amazingly easy. I don't have much tolerance for tech, and I've been pleasantly surprised.
yeah. I wonder if there is some kind of grant program for water conservation districts that are helping their customers conserve water. And we could get grant money to help, and then we could maybe throw in some of our money, and then the customer throws in some of their money. Cause I think this is a great solution to the problem that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And,
And you might be able to talk to the flume people, and they've got this website. I don't know how simple the scripting would be for them to do something that aggregates the information and pushes it to BPUD as well. Then you might get a pretty cheap one of these systems that otherwise would be costing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
that's what we're trying to avoid, but I think it's worth looking into,
Interesting,
so.
yeah.
I think that's the sweet spot. If we can find something that the customer can read for their water meter, that we can also read, so
Yeah.
we can get a collective sense of the water use for the whole town, that would be. I think that's the best option if that exists, but I don't know. It seems like they're either one or the other. The Badger, I kind of get the sense it's for utilities, for driving around. I don't know if they communicate with the customer. I kind of get the sense that they're one or the other, but.
What do you
but I
think,
don't know.
Georgia?
Yeah, I mean, I would urge us to push in this direction. I mean, exactly what that pushing looks like, I don't really know, but,
We can turn to you, actually.
yeah, I will, I mean, we can look into, these devices.
Yeah.
And I do think it's an important, I mean, just to add on to what Rob was saying, I mean, I don't have a flume device, but I remember during the drought, people that had installed them, and it's not just about leak. It's also incredibly effective as kind of a behavioral feedback
Yeah.
and really impacts people's water usage.
Yeah,
So,
I think we should do it. So I guess we're gonna ask you to come back to us at the next meeting and tell us what some of our options are and what the costs are. And I do like the idea of trying to spread it around. Maybe the flume people can work out some financial arrangements also, and I think it'd be worth it for the district to actually kick in some of the costs. But I think the customer will have to also, because we are talking about sizable amount of money.
Yeah.
But I
I
think,
think it's actually relatively inexpensive, considering a
Well,
couple $100 a connection's not much money for. If we wind up saving significant amount of water,
Yeah,
particularly in a drought situation.
yeah.
And it's interesting to me for the folks those of us who are living in town as a behavior mirror. But also if I was a non-local landlord and I was doing, Airbnb or something like that, you'd certainly know if you had a water leak from gardening equipment, which is where our worst leaks are, which is the irrigation systems. But even if you had tenants who were being, either wittingly or unwittingly profligate with water, you'd be able to see it rather quickly. Would everybody care? No, but even if a third of the people or a quarter of the people cared,
Yeah.
it could really make a
No.
difference. I think it's worth trying to make this as accessible as possible to
Yeah.
as many people as possible.
Is there a monthly service fee also?
No, it's a straight cost, as far as
Okay.
I understand. I just got one, I haven't installed it yet, it just
Yeah.
arrived.
No, you just buy it and then it's kind of like the Amazon Blink phones, you know, there's a website, but they don't charge you any subscription fees.
Great. Okay, well, I think it's something the board is definitely interested in pursuing. So, there you go, George. If you can come back to us next meeting with some
Just more info.
information,
Next
yeah.
step.
Can you also ask Stinson, the Stinson Water Department, what they do? I've heard they have smart water meters, but I don't know, maybe it's
Yeah.
just Seadrift or maybe it's the whole town, I'm not sure, if any, you guys know?
It's the entire town.
It's the entire town, what system do they use and does it work and is it effective?
Yeah, I know that Stu's already talked to their operators about it, and I think it is somewhat problematic, but I don't know
Yeah.
what system it is that they use. Jennifer, do you know? what
I don't
system
know
they're
the
on?
precise system, I just know that same conclusion, but we can definitely look at it, and that's one that both the customer gets the data and the district does.
Okay.
So Eyes on Water, I know City of Santa Rosa has it too, I mean, a lot of districts do. And I get mixed up in terms of looking at, in terms of which ones can work for us and which ones can't, you know, we want to have eyes on the, we have a lot of value from the guys being out on these streets on a regular basis, and so that's why it was Neptune meters, I think that Stu was discussing with you, that we had a presentation of where they can be the Neptune technology can be retrofit on existing meters, or you can replace the whole meter. And there's probably value to replacing the whole meter. You'll see the cost difference in the finance committee materials. I'll just give them to you guys. And we were expecting the retrofit to be way cheaper. And the other thing about the Neptune is we can install them. It would not, it's very easy, as opposed to some of the other that might require, you know, a contractor to do it, just in terms of efficiency. But Stu, the guys are convinced that they would be able to install, whether it's the new meter itself or the retrofit apparatus. And I've heard this before, the people in the meter industry have a incentive to say this, but they say that after 10 years, meters start reading inaccurately.
Oh.
And so that if, for example, it could well be, because I was telling the representative about the frustrations around unaccounted for water loss in our system and how we can't find it. He said, well, if you got a lot of old meters, it might be that right there. But one of the things from Stinson and talking with the chief operator there is their unaccounted for water loss did not change when they replaced virtually every single meter in the town within a meter. So, you know, you got to kind of discern what's puffery, so to speak, on the sales side, and then what are the pros and cons of each in terms of the technology. Does it work here? Would this mean if we're not getting eyes on things out in the community, we don't want that. So it's, you know, a suite of issues to consider, but, you know, I can pass on what we know and get more information.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is that obviously some of this will be dependent on talking to people, I think. And so, I mean, I'll try to gauge pretty early if it looks like by next meeting, I'd be able to have this information. I think that, I mean, if we look into it, we want to be pretty thorough. And I would just want to make sure that what I'm bringing to you guys next month is like actually useful information. So I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, and my sense is that it can get pretty complicated, so.
Yeah.
But I'll do my best.
I'm interested in staying looped in, if it's helpful to have someone else from the board.
Yeah.
The finance committee would be directly involved too, right?
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, from that standpoint.
Yeah, it's listed as a tier 2 project for water on the capital improvement plan, so, you know, we're thinking about it down the road. I think it'd be valuable to do a pilot project, like maybe you said on a block or two, a couple parts of Blinis, maybe even 2 different companies, try a couple different systems and see which one actually works. before we go in kind of whole hog, you know, spending a couple $100,000, $300,000 on a system, let's actually
Yeah.
make sure it works. You know, we're sort of getting off on a tangent, but you know, this would, I think, solve the problem that we're trying to solve here, which is, you know, not having people coming up and asking us for relief.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, resolution.
Yeah.
553. Is that what we were
That's what
talking
we were
about?
originally talking about, but you know,
I
if
think
we can
that's-
solve
It's
this,
germane, yeah.
yeah, it is.
It is. Well, I was gonna say, in terms of the leaking toilet thing, I know that they are, not as consistent, but that's because there's really different kinds of leaking toilets. There's the one that's down in the basement that nobody ever goes to and sees, that been run for a long time, but it's not, nobody knows. And then there's the one that's right upstairs next to your bedroom, but nobody bothers to call us up. And we treated those in different ways, you know? So I think we should still leave it on an ad hoc basis for the leaking toilets.
For now, I think that makes sense for now.
Yeah,
We're
And then
moving
we'll-
forward on various fronts to try to dial it in better.
yeah,
and-
but, right, the goal is not to so much isolate which leaking toilet it is, but to track the loss of water
Exactly.
regardless of where it's coming from, yeah. Okay, well, good, it sounds like we're heading in the right direction on this one. We'll go on to item 8. This is a draft financial report and, ending June 30th, 2023. Did you want to address this in particular, Jennifer? I mean, it's in the binder,
Yeah, I mean, I've reviewed it, as has our outside CPA. Although the two of us have not yet been able to confer about our respective comments on it. I mean, I point to the key provision, which is on the second paragraph on page 1 of the independent auditor's report, which says that, in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the business type activities and major fund of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District as of June 2023. That goes on a little bit, but that's the key thing, that you're getting a clean opinion that, and we, neither the our outside CPA nor I had any issue with the numbers, you know, that are in the report. There's a few typos and some clarifications that are needed in the management and discussion analysis that are not, you know, hugely significant, but just for accuracy's sake, as well as some changes in footnote 4, which relates to the pension fund discussion. And our CPA had some comments there, and I just noted that they, in one place, that the employer contribution rate were last year's numbers rather than this year. So just some kind of minor changes, and that I'd be just asking and happy to answer any questions, and then also just to have you basically direct me to you know, communicate any necessary, you know, requested changes from the district or our consultants to the auditors and finalize the statements.
so do we need to have a motion to accept this, or?
Well, we don't want to really, I guess it's sort of to, you know, that you've considered it and are directing me to, you know, complete and finalize the statements with the auditors.
And you would like a motion to
Yeah.
that effect?
Mhm.
Okay, so can I get a motion to that effect? Authorize Jennifer to proceed with the, is it the auditors?
Yeah, well, what I would be doing is be working with our outside bookkeepers to convey the comments and ensure that they, well, to make any necessary revisions to the statements, to the draft statements, and finalize them.
Okay,
What was your comment about footnote 4? I don't know what that is. Where's footnote 4?
It's on multiple pages of the statements. Let's see, it begins on yeah, it's on page 15 through
Oh, note 4.
19.
Note 4. Oh, sorry. I thought you said footnote 4.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I
Note
did.
four. I got it,
Note,
gotcha.
note 4.
Okay, note 4. Got it.
that's on
Yeah.
page 15, yeah.
So for example, on page 15, about in the middle of the page where that table is, and it, like the last item says required employer contribution rates, and the 2865 and 759, those were the 2022 numbers, not 2023. So that just needs to be corrected. And our CPA had some corrections to page, no, honestly, I can't remember which one now, but it was one of the pages of the, one of these pages that's having to do with this is all, the note 4 is largely driven now by the GASB 68, the General Accounting Standard Board Rule 68. That's the one that requires public entities to make all of these disclosures about what your pension liability is, and have that reflected in the financial statements. And there's very technical requirements that that apply to that. And so and that is really the responsibility of the district, and with our, the professional assistance of our outside CPA. So we had some corrections there just to make sure that it's accurate.
So again, I'd like to formulate the language of the motion. So that we could make it.
I would move to proceed, for the district to proceed with comments of the draft financial report of the BCPUD for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023.
Okay. And
Direct staff to.
And direct staff to
finalize it.
finalize it
Mhm.
with comments as needed.
There you go. Can you get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I mentioned a couple things to Jennifer. I think she discussed them with Georgia and you're pursuing them, right?
Yeah.
So not worth mentioning here.
Yeah,
It's okay.
yeah, no, I mean, I definitely made note of them.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good.
All right, no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Okay, takes us to item 9, volunteer committee reports. Now, the resident permit parking plan committee.
I don't know, do you want me to report on that?
Yeah,
I
sure.
can, me and Val and I met with Sherry and Bruce. And there's nothing much to report. We were kind of, obviously it's been a very long history, so we're sort of kind of, at least, I mean, I think Val was more aware of it than I was, but I was just sort of getting the historical perspective. But it's still at a stage where it doesn't really make sense for us to implement it because the ordinance is still being fleshed out
Oh, okay,
and finalized.
okay,
And so, but yes,
thanks.
that's.
Resource recovery, anything on that?
We'll be having a meeting with Joe down there next week. I think at the last meeting, we reported that, the site got, kind of beat up during the major storms, and we've been having a box brought in by with West Marin Compost, basically the green waste. We've been able to continue to accept green waste, but needing the site's been having to charge more for it because there's additional costs involved in getting it transported. So everyone's anxious to have the site reopened, and we're getting some rock down on it, I think last week, and working toward reopening the site.
Great.
Not open yet.
It's open in the sense that you can bring material. And that I guess I would just make a plea for the record to please treat Joe and Greg nicely. Few people haven't been because they're upset that they can't bring more material or they can't bring bigger material, but that shouldn't be kind of taken out on Joe and Greg. Yeah, so you can bring material down, like basically 1 yard, amount, kind of pickup truck full amounts. And just a bit of a stopgap measure just until the site reopens, which I don't want to make any promises right now, but we're moving towards that as soon as we can. It's a high priority to get it back open.
And the land stewardship committee, is there anything that we know? Currently not. Moving on to item 10, other business. These are board committee reports, finance, anything other than what we just reviewed with the financial report.
No, there's a meeting, next meeting of the finance committee is on Monday, March 25th at 10. And then there's another meeting scheduled for the following Monday, April 1st. And the draft budget is anticipated, the draft budget will be presented at the April meeting, April
Okay.
board meeting.
All right, legal committee, just the announcement that they settled the suit with the coastal commission and we came out good.
Mhm.
Nice.
Mesa septic flood control and roads, anything?
Nothing to report.
Okay.
I have one question about that. I know that the guys have a device that reads out culverts. And how does one access that? Like, is that something that we want to do a little publicity about for people? Or are you guys getting plenty of requests already? You don't want any more? Or I walk around a lot and I see a lot of ones that need it. And I'm just wondering if we want to do a little publicity about that or.
I can talk to them or I can have them go, check things out. I mean, Andrew was like, pretty closely monitoring things and doing cleanup work, but yeah, basically it's a call to the district if there's a specific one, but I can also, we can also ask the staff to, put their eyes out on, where if they see any issues and then, and we could put something in the newsletter about it.
Yeah, I was wondering if that might be something that we could make sure that the community knows because
Yeah,
it has been a late rainy spring and I think there's plenty of people in town who don't know that that's an option,
Yeah.
something that we could offer.
Is that the fire department that would do that, spray out, and at least it used to be,
We've got some.
It can be.
Isn't it a vacuum?
Yeah, we have this huge thing called a Herco vac, which is basically like an enormous shop vac that can suck out stuff. But if it's really impacted, like people have neglected something for years, or it's more than about 15 feet long, then the fire department will has anyway made efforts. I don't know that they're in the regular business of doing that, but I know that they've done it in a couple instances.
They used to be the ones, but I did.
As a regular matter, was it?
But
Okay,
that's been quite some time.
okay.
Yeah, I think it's important because there's lots of standing water around on the mesa and, in terms of people's septic systems, et cetera, just like the more that we can keep things moving in the downward direction, the better. And if we can help,
yeah.
we need to let people know. I just think people forget it. Or new people.
I think the next newsletter would be nice to have a little box that
Yeah,
says,
or in the hearsay.
In the hearsay and stuff, yeah.
Hearsay next door or something like that.
All right, moving on, personnel committee.
We're gonna meet
Anything?
soon.
What?
We're gonna meet.
Yeah, I
And
need
did
to
we-
just get dates, I put out a request for dates, like,
Right, and I
For-
wrote back to you, but.
Yeah,
like,
for the MOU, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah, for the MOU and
Yeah,
the assistant
okay.
manager.
I'll send another email tomorrow. You
Sorry
can
about
check-
that.
Nope, that's okay.
And the building committee? Anything that to report?
We did a walkthrough. I mean, I don't know, Andrew, if you wanted to report on it, but I can. also just-
You're welcome to as well.
Yeah, and just one point of order, I didn't realize that's a ad hoc committee, so it's in the wrong spot here. So
Oh, yeah.
kind of tried to, yeah, that's like one of the things I want to talk about. That, when we generally talk about the structure of the agenda, just making some changes so that basically it's fool safe. But anyway, sorry, keep going, Andrew.
We met, when we as Georgia, Stu Okander, Kirsten Walker, and myself. And we just toured the buildings of the district and just kind of assessed their condition and use and upcoming repairs. Kind of with the idea of, are any of these buildings or sites suitable for either more immediate use of office space or maybe long-term renovation for some like administrative use. And a lot of the buildings are in just various states of disrepair, not that great. And some of the buildings, like the water treatment plant is pretty good. very good, I would say. And then the lab building by the sewer ponds has a bat problem and like 30% of it, but the rest of it is actually pretty good and pretty nice building. And those guys, Stu said that in the summer, he's there every day, like testing water and waste and kind of working at the computer. So I feel like that building could use a little bit of a facelift or some upgrades. Also, there's a loft and it's all of our files, which are very nicely organized, but I just see that as like a scanning project when I saw it.
Yeah,
I mean, we kind of were just looking at like what can be done with what we have, you know, especially in the yard here. These buildings are kind of inundated with surface water at certain times of year where the water just like comes in the siding and just washes across the concrete where a lot of stuff is stored. And so I think maybe just some work in terms of drainage could be useful there, not so much architectural or construction. But we're kind of, I'd say we're still like putting together the assessment.
Yeah, I mean, we basically did the tour and I would say the committee didn't really get an opportunity to really discuss
Yeah.
what we saw. I mean, we all saw it and we're like, look at that. But as far as like a big, you know, what was the overall impression, we didn't really have an opportunity. So I'm figuring we'll probably do that some point soon. And then maybe next meeting, we'd have something more kind of substantive to report on.
Okay, all right.
Was the hope that maybe instead of doing the portable offices outside, you might be able to use one of the existing buildings? Was that?
Well,
the objective?
I mean, I feel like I was kind of a push like for this whole thing, so I can talk about my hope. My hope was, first of all, I haven't seen all of the facilities, and I feel like if we're gonna do a big facilities upgrade project, it makes sense to understand all of our needs. So that was like a primary. And I felt pretty like vindicated in that it was a good exercise and really feeling like, again, I obviously wasn't involved in a lot of, or haven't been involved in a lot of the talks around this building. But my sense is that, you know, it was really, a lot of those talks were geared towards making sure that the administration has nice facilities, safe facilities to work in. But we have all of these other needs, and I think it would be really kind of irresponsible to engage in that without looking more broadly at like, okay, what does our shop look like? What is the other building that, you know, our operators spend tons of time in look like? And so, yeah, again, I think it, you know, it's complicated and we need to, again, sit down and think about it. And in like a kind of comprehensive way of, you know, what was our overall feeling about a path forward from that examination, but.
Good, well, that's,
Yeah,
Infrastructure.
very valuable.
yeah, very much, thank you.
A lot more to come.
Yeah,
So we haven't signed a lease for the portable offices yet? Or?
No, we have not. And yes, and sorry, just one other kind of the way I was thinking about it was just trying to understand if there would be a long-term use for that portable in the district. And if at that point, it would make more sense to purchase as opposed to rent. And like sort of what is that economic calculation? So we haven't looked at it in, I mean, I kind of like perused around of like, you know, purchase and, you know, but again, I need to, I think, and Bell too, we were like sort of just starting that investigation of what is actually available, what's the cost difference, and anyway.
yeah,
Okay,
very good.
I think you skipped operations, actually.
I did. Sorry.
I was gonna ask if there's any update on the radial gate assessment. Jennifer, do you know if Gannett Fleming, are they coming out anytime? We have a date for their visit?
no, it's gonna all depend on creek level,
Yeah.
the point, so it'll be
Spring or
late.
Summer?
Yeah,
Summer.
late summer, as
Late
late as possible, like the last possible day before it starts raining again. We'll have to just assess that we need the creek flows to be as low as possible.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what about the groin and the seawall?
well, the groin we're trying to pin down dates for, and the seawall right now is in the hands of the county. The county engineers are evaluating it. They've asked us for some information and they are, and they are assessing what they are. I think what they want to do next is kind of go in the direction that Gannett was recommending of doing the evaluation to see if the splicing repair
Mhm.
will be possible. That's the latest that I heard, and I sent them information, and they actually sent us also some of the original drawings of the seawall construction. So that was, it is what very much what Gannett Fleming has been assuming that it was, that with the seawall with riprap behind it, and then the seawall well underground with riprap down there too. So that riprap, seawall with riprap back. So that's a lot of wave absorbing material there. Yeah. So that's, as far as I know, what's going to happen. And I think the conversation that will have to happen at some point is, well, as this is a county facility, are they kind of taking it from here in terms of,
Yeah.
you know, the dollars and whatnot? So,
Okay. Thanks.
yeah.
What about the Canyon Road sewer hookup?
I think that, like I sent you guys the information from the other, then we were gonna, what I suggested is we should have a meeting and then to plan for another meeting with the homeowners.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then I reached out to, I think Mark Wilson's been on vacation. So I can reach back out with him because we would, I think, want to meet with him again.
For sure.
Yeah. Does that sound
Sounds good.
good? Okay.
Okay, yeah, I had skipped over water and sewer operations, so I think that ends the board committee reports. Next item will be the minutes. Do we have them or not?
No, I'm sorry, but I will have the minutes from last month. That and this meeting will be ready at the April meeting. Yeah.
All right, that takes us to the warrants. Do we have any questions or comments about them? And if not, would someone like to make a motion to approve them? Anybody?
Not a question.
I have a question about AT&T. It's for is that for 3 landlines? Is that a monthly charge?
Yep.
$1,000?
Yep.
We pay $1,000 every month for 3 landlines?
Yep.
Outrageous.
Wow, okay.
It is.
These are the one landline at
We'll
the,
be quitting soon, so.
what, and it was before that, it was 2,000. As soon as the bills were 2,000 when we had this facility, we've moved them all off onto internet that we can.
Mhm.
And we're trying to get the reliable alarm system situation for the lift station. And then at the water treatment plant, there's 2 lines there. No, it's
Yeah, yeah,
so.
Yeah,
that's what my bill is. All right.
And I think you guys approved, Chris's proposal for
Yeah.
what we were gonna do, but then when he got into the weeds and it was all about actually, okay, let's put this, then he became very nervous about a little slip sliding by the equipment providers and monitoring providers about, are you, really doing what you're saying that you're gonna be
what do you
doing?
mean? He wasn't confident that the system would work?
Right, essentially.
Okay.
So he's further, he's looking further into things, but yeah, so, and because it's not an option for us to not have him work, it's worth the $1,000 a month
Yeah.
to have the confidence that our alarm systems work.
I mean, the rumor is that AT&T isn't going to be
Yeah.
providing landlines anymore, so we need to have, something in place before that happens, if it does, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
It's just going to, it's going to the Utilities Commission.
there's a huge outcry about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like way before they're actually gonna quit. I mean, yes, we should have plans, but they're just noticing that they're gonna ask not to do it. But then there's the whole hearing
Yeah.
process, right? And there's bound to be
Yeah.
incredible. I mean, yes,
Mhm.
despicable in every way.
Yeah.
However, not imminent, I don't think.
no,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have the incentive to avoid this cost, obviously, yeah. And, because as soon as we got rid of the multiple other lines, then the cost of these 2 got jacked up.
Oh, for Pete's sakes.
So, no, but yeah, that's what that is, and it's half of what it would be, or probably, you know, less than half, but, or more than whatever, whichever way that would go, yeah, but that's our monthly bill.
And any other questions or comments about the warrants? No. I'll have a motion to approve them.
I motion to approve the warrants.
So moved.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 4-0. Schedule the next meeting
April 17th.
for 17. All right, now with that, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.